It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, we're joined by Alex and Rob from CKD Shop, makers of fine Land Rover Series 1 products. And now, without further delay, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Barris, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at thebarriscollection.com or follow us on Instagram at thebarriscollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the scuttle vent to Steven's hermetically sealed cabin. I'm the fresh air of podcasting, Ike Goss. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, busy episode this week. Finally, after the Ministry of Scheduling managed to negotiate terms with the CKD Shop group, we have managed to secure an interview time and get them to sit down and talk to us. It is, let me tell you, the world of pre-1500 restoration and parts supply, just a mad dash business. I mean, it's like Wall Street of the 1980s, you know? It sounds
amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
There's just so much going on.
Tough but fair negotiations, but we finally got them on the show, and they're really looking forward to this interview. These guys are great. Spent some time doing some trips with these guys in Australia, driven some Land Rovers with them. They're both great to have on trip and great to talk about Land Rovers. Super knowledgeable and doing some fun stuff. So yeah, let's hear all about it.
All right, let's dial up the old interview machine and we'll get those boys in here. All right, well, finally, the much anticipated, often scheduled interview with our very good friends, Alex and Rob from CKD Shop. They're in the UK, purveyors of fine Series 1 Land Rover parts the world over. So, guys, welcome. Thank you for spending the time. It was a hard schedule, but it's worth it because, man, the people want to hear from you. You know.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us on. And yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah.
So let's talk quickly then about the CKD Shop. First of all, before we even get into what the CKD Shop is, where did you guys come up with the name? How did you settle on CKD Shop?
Yeah.
So, like when I was, I suppose, building old Land Rovers, I always thought of, well, Queensland, where I'm from, in Australia, all the cars were sent, or most of the cars were sent after 1950. CKD was completely knocked down. So I sort of thought, well, if I ever do something to do with parts for Land Rovers, it always would be a cool name to actually link it to the fact that you're buying all the parts in pieces. You're never going to buy the full vehicle. So it's like a kit of parts. So yeah, it couldn't obviously be Land Rover, right? So I had to call it something else. And I think a lot of companies call their things after the name of the founder or something like that. But I thought the Queensland connection and the really cool, quirks of CKD vehicles, that it was a cool name.
So, I mean, Land Rover may be available now. I don't know. They don't seem to be so bothered with trying to keep hold of it. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe you can, not too late to go after it.
Yeah, maybe let's
Well, I think that's really cool. I think it's neat. And obviously, you're absolutely right. The CKD cars are always, a bit different, an interesting collection of parts and things. So what better a name for the, like I said, preeminent Series 1 parts supplier, maybe the world over, certainly so far as manufactured new parts for your Series 1 Land Rover. So talk to me a little bit about what is it that the CKD Shop does? Why is it such a fantastic resource for, I mean, especially pre-1500 car owners, but for Series 1's owners, sort of full up?
I guess we realised that there was a market for panels initially. That was the sort of a creation, it wasn't of CKD as a sort of theoretical side of it, but it was more about trying to make parts that we knew were going to fit on the vehicle and not require a load of fettling, a weekend lost, to fit a tiny little part. And we just got hacked off it, didn't we? And we were at a point whereby we'd kind of done the doors, we'd done the tailgates, and, sold a few of them and realised, there is a bit of a market there, for these things. But it just it grew legs, didn't it? Quite quickly, and we're now 1,070 something. 1,070 products available, online. Series 1 specific stuff.
That's like more than a Series 1. You can build a whole car. You can literally order a CKD from CKD.
He knows the exact number.
So you're 2/3 of the way to just being able to get a kit to become a kit car company for Series 1 orders.
Well,
that was the idea originally. Our thing was not. It was more the fact that being remote from Australia, what kind of hacked me off was the orders from every single place to get my car built was unbelievable. You could go to 10, 15 places and still not get all the parts you need.
Right.
And it used to cost so much in shipping, and you used to spend so much time, and you forget where you bought something, and it was from some man in the shed, and you found it on a forum, or we did this, and we're like, this is just a place you can just buy everything from one place, because I just can't be dealing with constantly, remember.
It's time.
It just takes so long. And you used to on a Sunday night after you used to wait the Monday night, when the UK woke up, first day back at work in Australia, I used to order a load of stuff, and I got it on the DHL, I had it by Friday, and then my next weekend's amount of stuff to bolt on my car. And then it was like a repeated process. I was like, this is so frustrating, because you'd be buying 3 packages from different places, and some of them would come quick, and one of them wouldn't use that in courier. It was just this is really hard. So
what's the most frustrating experience you've had with an ill-fitting aftermarket part? And I say this, and I might know the answer, but
oh man, frustrating or dangerous?
Sure.
I guess what would be the most big hitter item that's the most frustrating thing?
Probably anything machine that just doesn't fit on.
Axle collars.
Axle collars?
Yeah,
Axle collars.
That's probably pretty much fine.
That's never a very fun thing.
Safety critical item.
What about cam bearings?
Cam bearings. You want to get into that?
Cam bearings.
I mean it's again. Gaskets and stuff, that's very annoying.
There's lock tabs that don't actually match up to the holes.
So when you tighten them up, they kind of pivot around each other. And, that's
I can remember buying a genuine set of gaskets and being like, oh my gosh, these are gonna fit and they're gonna be so great. I'm not gonna have to mess with them. And they were so old that they had shrunk down quite a bit. That's what I was like probably 18 years old or something at the time. I was so disappointed because I had spent all this money on new old stock gaskets, but they were
we've all been there with that kind of stuff.
Some of that stuff is not fun.
Particularly gaskets suffer probably the worst, I would say, long term in terms of storage things. But axle collars, safety critical item,
brake stuff,
wheel cylinders. It's a good point. I mean, the thing that I guess frustrates us, particularly with the axle collars, is that it's not a hard part to make. It really isn't. This is not rocket science level machining. This is pretty simplistic machining. But to get it, to get something that actually has a decent amount of tonnage against it when you're pushing it on, without it cracking, which was a weird one that we saw the other day for the first time, a collar that actually vertically fractured going
Unusual.
on. Yeah, that was on Facebook, so who knows what was going on? But hey,
it's interesting. You say that it's not rocket science, but it is difficult. Choosing the right material, and even if you can make a piece that's dimensionally accurate to the original, it still needs to have the same properties as the original in order to work properly. And that's, I think, the part that is missing from a lot of aftermarket manufacturers, that technical knowledge of materials.
It's lack of basic reverse engineering knowledge. So, like, okay, what kind of material is this made from? Okay, I'll take it to an electron microscope, get it spectrographed, and then figure out what the grade of material is that I need to make it from. What surface finish should it be? Well, you go to a decent machinist, and they'll be able to tell you what grade the finish of that actual, say the collar is, in terms of it's got to run on a seal or a lip that's got to run on it, so it can't be obviously unbelievably, rough machine finish. So yeah, it's a combination of things that I think all stack up, and then you end up, up the creek with no power.
Then you end up with a wheel that's fallen off.
That just falls off your car. Yeah,
which we've seen in the past. So yeah, and it's not nice, and you're like, well, damn, that's not good there in the office. But hey, it happens. Actually, on that, and this is totally not a plug, we've just done, is it 100 of each?
Yeah, we've done a test run.
We've just done a test run of 100 collars for front half shafts and 100 for the rear collars. Finally got around to doing it. And this is no bearing on the frustrations that we've just vented. It's been on our radar because we knew the genuine parts ones were going to run out. And we'd only ever fit that on our vehicles anyway.
Right.
So coming to your market soon will be CKD Shop and they're not. So yeah, and they won't. There you go, great price as well. So yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about your product testing. So how do you make sure they don't fall off?
Drive on 164.
Yeah, put some on.
10,000 miles.
Yeah, put some miles on. So again, it's basic engineering principles of assembly. So assemble it properly. Ensure you're getting a decent amount of tons into it from the press, and not like 1 or 1.5, which we see quite regularly, with some of these things that we've had in the shop where people have complained that, their half shaft has already started to creep. And we then obviously split it apart, and you're only taking, a ton and a half. And you're thinking about actual loadings when a vehicle's going around a roundabout, for instance. Yeah. When it's probably at its highest loading of force, and how that would happen, and it would then obviously, start to creep. So that type of thing, it's designed, it was reverse engineered from genuine, original, new old stock ones. So we've got an interference fit, to play with on the drawings. And then obviously finding a machinist that you can put your faith in, but also figuring out, the material grade and all the other basic stuff to then build it all up into something that is a like-for-like product to the original, which is what we, have done or have tried to do with all the parts that we sell. We've always said, if we're not willing to fit it onto our own vehicle, then we simply won't sell it. And it's as simple
like
as
the
that.
Hair Club for Men, you're not just the owners, you're also customers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And as Al just mentioned, my 48 model is our kind of test mule, and that's done over 10,000 miles now in various guises with different shock absorbers on it. The tyres on it have done 10,000 miles. That are multi-grip tyres that we sell, and they've still got tread on them, so they can't be that terrible. Things like that you look at and you use it in different environments, so hot, cold, measure it against all basic kind of, I guess, vehicle manufacturing testing.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds very similar to how the original car was developed, right? That the factory would iterate new parts or new versions or new methods, and they would just stick them to a car and send them out into a field somewhere.
Exactly, yeah. Actually properly field test it, and then obviously explore, the viability of, okay, this is not great, we need to improve, X, Y, and Z, and then, move on from there.
So this is actually a good segue. So that's kind of your philosophy in terms of, making some of these reproduction parts. Obviously, there's some folks out there that would say, okay, yeah, you could solve this problem by putting a fully flow axle in the back of your Series 1. So maybe tell us a little bit about your restoration philosophy or your philosophy when it comes to these vehicles.
Well, I think we we aim for genuine as original and authentic correctness.
Even fitting a tow bar can cause.
Yeah, even fitting a tow bar. One of our customers asked us to fit a 50mm, modern style tow bar on the back of his beautiful 80. And we were like, I don't really want to do this because it's not authentic. So we came up with the original jaw type tow bar and then modified a pin 50mm hitch to go into it. So you can change out the original style pin, put the 50mm pin in when he wants to tow his trailer, and then take it back out and put the original one in when he's not. So it still looks authentic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, things like that. I mean,
And the trailer socket.
the trailer socket as well. We had to come up with a way of hiding that.
Right.
So we did a little mount that basically folds it up behind the rear cross member.
A bit like a new Defender, actually.
Yeah, a little bit like that. Do you have the instruction manual though for the new Defender? The somewhat lurid.
I know the one. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
We figured you knew the one we were talking about.
Yeah, I think everybody knows that one.
It's a very questionable illustration, that definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm told that Jerry McGovern actually drew that up himself. That was he originated that one. So what that says about him, but it was a good bit of engineering.
I think that our biggest kind of number one philosophy is we try to get the vehicle as close to the original factory specification as it was. Within the realms of modern day paint systems, etc., that you have available at the time of restoration.
Right.
That's not to say that things might improve and you might be able to get the authenticity, up another level, in 10 years' time or whatever. But where we are right now, we try to achieve what we can, in terms of the authenticity, but also the likeness against the original vehicle and build date. Right down to, individual chassis number changes and what have you. That level of detail is where we operate at.
Right.
Now, these vehicles are old enough that you're starting to see vehicles that have been previously restored getting restored again.
Second restoration.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you bring that up. So do you feel like the vehicles are getting more authentic than they used to be? Which is kind of counterintuitive. You think the closer to the manufacturing date, the closer they would be to being original, but it seems like there's more of a focus from restorers on originality.
So originality is a funny thing. I think as soon as you've used that first tank of petrol, your car is no longer original. Let's face it. How far do you want to take?
Yeah, that's it. But people are going to pretty extreme lengths, yourselves included, right?
Yeah. I think yourselves maybe principally among many.
Yeah. I mean, we strive to get, as I say, the vehicles as authentic as we can, and we will scour the world, for that individual part or component that we need to make that vehicle, onto the level that we deem acceptable for what we want to strive to achieve, I guess, as a company, and it's interesting you mentioned about vehicles having been restored previously and then them being re-restored because, it's like another reset kind of button again. We've actually got a dark green 49 coming in early next year for restoration. It was restored, in the 90s, would you say?
Yeah.
With what was available at the time in terms of knowledge, paint, all the other bits and pieces that we've done. And it was done to a pretty decent standard. But the most critical thing with this particular car is that they didn't change or exchange any of the original componentry. So, for example, it still has its original sealed dynamo. It still has its RF96 regulator, which are all dated, specifically to the vehicle. So somebody cared about it, when it was done a long time ago, and we're just going to take it and then reboot it again, but take it to our level, in terms of for example, the pot rivets on it are wrong, and we redid all the pot rivets, basically reinvented the wheel, didn't we, with tooling and everything else, and made, how many did we make it? Too many, but it had to work out on a cost basis. So we made 100,000 of these pot rivets, but if you put one of our rivets next to an original one in a cabin, you'll see that the rivet head is very flat, and that's the way they work. You know, it's not a normal pot rivet that you can get from, I don't know, Costco or whatever you have in the States. You know?
Yeah, Costco doesn't sell rivets, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. But yeah, so I think that's kind of fundamentals, isn't it? Yeah.
We definitely are rivet campers.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. You literally, so much so you've literally built your own rivet. So that's
They were completely wrong.
Yeah, everything that was available was not authentic. And when we were dealing with JLR, you know, back in the day, and they were doing the reborn program, they were like, okay, so what rivets do we use? And we were like, well, nobody makes them. You know, you might be able to get a small batch of new old stock ones from some crazy part of the world, but that's never going to fulfill the quantities that you guys are going to need to do all these cars. So we're like, okay, we'll just make them. And that's what happened. It happened with quite a few things, and we've got items on our inventory that Alex and I view as things that were really nice to have, but complete and utter waste of money, because the cost of reinventing it versus the actual sale cost in terms of what you can get in the market is minimalistic. But I mean, you never get them again, and that's the thing. So it's like, we'll just have to go on.
So this brings up another interesting, debate, which is, these vehicles have lived a long life, and there's a lot of things that have happened to them along the way, some significant, some insignificant, and some people, want to preserve the story of the life of the Land Rover, not just return it to a new state. Where do you draw the line? How do you decide, what to keep and what to get rid of if it's been previously modified or changed by a previous owner, but maybe in an interesting way, or in a way that tells a story as part of its history?
Well, an example of that, I'm trying to think what car we had something that was
the Trayback.
Yeah, I mean that's an example. Yeah, like that was originally a body-sided pickup.
It was a CKD.
It was a CKD.
So we did it was a 109 Trayback, and it wasn't actually a Trayback. It arrived to us as a 109 truck cab with a completely destroyed rear body, which is pretty often the case with Australian,
aluminium.
Yeah, they just get absolutely broken apart. And this one had had a really hard life. It was painted pink and blue, and it was like all manner of colours under the sun. And it had obviously worked really hard, but had survived. And it survived, interestingly enough, with its original drivetrain and their engine gearbox and everything else.
The only reason all the gears were in the gearbox was because they were in a box.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, the gearbox was severely broken. I mean, it was probably one of those things of, when it came back from being rebuilt, the weight of the stuff that came out of the gearbox was equal, if not more, than what went back in, because it was that badly worn. That
gained mass somehow.
Yeah, the Stratton had a field day out of that. But yeah, so this particular vehicle, it was decided that the owner wanted to do a patina restoration on the car, but try to get it back to its original spec as far as achievable without going crazy and fitting new panels and all this other kind of stuff. So, like, the wings were pretty badly beaten up, and they'd had extra lights fitted in them. So we got them panel beaded straight as best as we could, had the light holes welded up, and then got a paint match of the Dove Grey, but like a patina faded out one, and then painted that in to match the rest of the panel work, so you wouldn't realise that it actually been repaired. And then the Trayback came about as part of a conversation with the owner, whereby we were like, okay, if you want to go down this line and you want to repair that rear body, it's going to cost a huge amount of money, and it's probably not really going to be worth it in the long scheme, the grand scheme of things. Why don't we do what the Aussies would have done locally when the vehicle became, in a state whereby it was no longer usable, which was fit a steel frame tray with a wooden deck, and keep it authentic, because then it's a CKD built a car in Australia and it's got a cool tray back on it. It's part of the story of the vehicle.
Yes, it was a 58. And very late. It was when it was at that point where they would call it stage 1. So stage 2, the Jaguar Land Rover Australia or whatever at the time, Rover, had 3 stages in the CKD process, 1, 2 and 3. 1 was from the early 50s, when the lolly components were made in Australia, like the rims and the tyres, and some of them happened. Stage 2 was pretty much all the body was made in Australia. Chassis was in Australia, or welded together in Australia. All the electrical components were from Australia. So pretty blew everything. Basically half the car. Stage 3 was supposed to come into force around about 59, but in the budget wasn't there for Series 2 to do it, and that was the engine and the axle casings to be made in Australia. And basically the whole car would be almost fully local content. But that never happened. But this car was kind of cool because it had an Australian horn, Lucas Australia, it had an Australian dynamo, it had an Australian regulator. And so it was interesting because it was one of the cars that was right at the end with the maximum local content.
Some of those cars had Australian wheels too, right?
All the cars from 52, 53, right through till the 1970s had Australian rims.
Yes, I did.
So the Santana of the South Pacific, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that works.
And the Land Rover Reborns of 2017 also got Australian-made ROH rims, which were made off the same tool that was used in 1952. So that was still out in South Australia at the time, ROH wheels in Thomson Park, which were making wheels for Holden and Toyota at the time, and we were lucky enough to still have the tool. We still had the tool, and they still could press off with the amount of tools. That's particular steel we had to order. They did a batch of Parenti reels and a batch of Series 1 wheels because they had to buy a certain amount of this particular steel for wheel rims because it was obviously safety critical. So that's kind of cool. So
it's also
the Reborn car that was the Reborn was a CKD. It was a Queensland CKD. It had the rims that supported the program were from a CKD world. It sort of tied the whole thing together, and it's nice to sort of start and the end sort of.
It was. I think it's also pretty amazing that these manufacturers, some of them still have the original tooling. Around our engine mount and gearbox mounts, the kits that we sell, the big washer, what's that part?
4801.
See, it's great. We went to the original guys, found out who the manufacturer was, and they went out into their massive storage area, and we're like, we've still got the punch tool for that. We'll run you off. How many do you want? And that was in Birmingham. And it was from the 30s. And it's just, wow, that is phenomenal.
But it's stuff. You can't, a punch washer is 10 times better than a laser cut washer. And we're like, we want the nice smooth edge of the punch washer. We don't want to have that nasty, sharp edge laser that everybody sells. We want the proper.
Again, it's the authenticity kind of thing we're continually pushing to make things as good as we can. And it's quite interesting because sometimes you come across a frustration of they did this in the 40s and 50s. Why can't we do that today? What is going wrong with the world? That you can't re-engineer that kind of stuff. And
similar to the space program, I'm not sure how we've moved backwards in the last since the 1960s. But
you used to be able to throw people at a problem, right? And that's very difficult nowadays. You don't have that as a resource. Manpower used to be like a legitimate way to get things done, and huge machines that don't exist anymore.
There's the people vehicle.
Exactly.
Build a vehicle with 1 million parts and no problem.
That's
twice as many parts as our competitor, and let's make it the same. Try to make it the same price, right?
Exactly.
Wagons are another world of fun. Let's face it,
wagons are something else. There's so many little pieces in those cars. It's ridiculous. So you guys source a lot of the vehicles for customers, and you restore them. Tell us a little bit about one of the favorite vehicles that you've managed to find.
That was I mean, what about like some of the cars we did for? There's yeah, they were always fun, and then the guy in WA, that was quite fun. The one in New Zealand was quite fun. The one
that was a good trip. Yeah. How about the 48 one for recall? So
for one, 2731.
So this, when I found one of my 48s, which is chassis number 854, I got wind of this other one as a part of the process because the guy I bought it from was a bit of a legend in the town.
You were involved,
yeah, it's like rural New South on the Newport. It's just a town that you would just drive through without even blinking an eye. But anyway, there was a 48 there, and it was known that it was there, but the chap wouldn't sell it. Anyway, somehow I managed to twist his arm into selling it.
Ultimately, Al managed with that car, so that's kind of...
Yeah, because Al owned 855, the sequential numbered vehicle.
And I tried to buy it.
You did, didn't you? Yeah.
But I couldn't because the guy was 10 years old.
Yeah. I think turning up with a bottle of whiskey also helped.
It's a great negotiating technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you start drinking with them before you start negotiating?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're not actually drinking. It's like,
the negotiation happens towards the end of the bottle, I think. Yeah.
And I went into town to ask around for an engine crane because I was trying to piece this car together. And I went to this local garage and I got talking to the guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know where there's a 48 model." I'm like, "Whatever, everybody knows where there's a 48 model. Just because it's got the lights behind the grill, it's certainly 48." He's like, "No, I've got a picture of it on my phone. I'll come back later." Anyway, he came back later, and lo and behold, was this chassis ID tag, and it was number 2,731. And he was like, "It's really remote. If you're going to go and get this, it's like 2 or 3 days drive into the middle of nowhere, and it's in terrible condition." And we were like, "Okay, cool. This sounds awesome."
It's great.
Got in contact with the owners, and they were like, "Yeah, come and get it." So we were okay. Got some more pictures, and it had been on a floodplain in the station dump for a really long time.
Probably 50 years.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I mean, it was 50. It was buried. The mud had come up over almost to the lower side of the chassis, so we had to come dig it out when we got there. But it didn't have any half shafts, wheel, stub axle assemblies or anything like that. So everything that we needed, we had to take with us to go to this remote location to dig this vehicle out, get it on all 4 wheels, and then drag it out of the bush, basically.
Meanwhile, this is all done at 43 degrees.
Yeah, it was like Christmas time, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously the worst time to go into the outback when it's, unbelievably hot, but challenging and fun nevertheless. So we went on this really big drive out to this place, met the station owners who thought we were absolutely crazy to go and get this old Land Rover out of the dump, and they were like, "These guys are getting rid of our scrap for free. This is amazing." What more could you want? But this is way back in 2017.
16 or something. Yeah.
So this is before there was a lot of hype, media hype and media drive about these vehicles. So arguably, it was the right time to be doing it, I guess.
There's a lot of 1600 England.
Yeah, there's lots.
There's a 50 model in there. And all kinds of stuff. And that
yeah, what did we stay to the sheep shearing shed? Yeah, they put us up in their sheep shearing shed. We had to supply the beer, so we loaded up the back of the E90, didn't we? With loads and loads of beers.
I only had a 90 that stage, so it was just towing the 90 out.
That was difficult. Especially because the trailer that Alex had made was
very heavy,
bomb-proof. And it's built to survive the outback, the world in which people have no real grasp of what a road is.
Right.
To get to that station, it's the Burke Winaring Road, and to call it a road it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets all chewed up in the rainy season, and you end up with these unbelievable ridges where all these road trains come through. And it's pretty much like washed out kind of and you try to go down the side of it because it's trying to go through the middle would just be challenged, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's just
crazy.
It
the seat box.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, the gearbox was smacking the side of the underside of the seat box. It was that bad.
And we tried every speed, just couldn't get the oscillations right on the whole thing. And then we did one quarter light, bang, pop, drops, and then we're like, oh, that's bad. It's getting a bit hot. And then we did the whole rear window. So then we had to smash tape up beer bowl boxes to cover the rear, because then the dust was coming in.
Yeah, we had a 4X sponsored rear window for a while.
Then I swore I'll never take a wagon ever on an expedition ever again, because I felt that was
it was a nightmare.
I was like, no, pray back or no back.
So the conditions of this recovery were the memorable part, not necessarily the vehicle itself?
Well, I mean, the vehicle at the end of the day, it was a nice, original, well-worked and used 48 model, and it got restored back to factory original spec by the Reborn program, which was a great thing to see from the whole start to finish process, and to be able to be not only involved in the recovery but also be the leading guy on the restoration as well of this vehicle, which was. And I met the owner, who bought the vehicle and was able to tell him all the story about, how we went and got it, how crazy it all was. So, yeah, it's a complete circle.
It's quite original, like, it was commentary. Basically, it was a good, we found a few cars on that trip.
I mean,
they're all paddle.
I mean, you're one in finding 855. In terms of tracking that down.
Yeah.
That was done as well. Dealer sales records, using them and the family names and researching the family names and seeing where that takes you and how far you can go, with it. And sometimes, you find a gem, at the end of the search, and sometimes you just come up against a brick wall whereby nobody remembers the vehicle or it was scrapped. But we're like a dog with a bone, we really go after something until we can absolutely prove that it's dead. And up to that point, it's still alive and it's still somewhere, and we've just got to work hard and basically.
Well, not buried, that's the same. We found them so that they're buried, and we know they're buried, but who's going to go and dig them up?
It's crazy to think.
The next generation of crazy enthusiasts are going to dig them up. Some of those Volkswagen guys dig stuff up.
Yeah, it'll be Land Rover archaeology. Somebody
there'll be an X-ray or something on the ground. You'll be able to pick it up. Well, they look at dinosaurs. I'm sure we can look at an 80-inch under the ground.
Yeah, that's right.
People are that desperate.
If it gets to that, I want to be on watching that show, or I want to see that. That'd be cool.
Well, they're not making more, right? So some people are going to get desperate over time to find that next original car.
I mean, this one behind us, we're actually handing it over to the customer tomorrow. That Alex had known about this particular car for quite a long time, hadn't he? And it was basically with the second owners, and the chap that bought it from a station who had part dismantled it with an idea of fitting a straight six Holden engine, common thing in Australia. And they just abandoned it basically in the 70s in the corner of the shed.
I think I didn't know that.
Was it really? Well, okay, right. Maybe it's 60s. So and essentially it had sat like that. It had been recovered by this chap who had great intentions of doing it, but unfortunately never got around to it. And Alex expressed an interest in getting it. And one day, which just happened to coincide without being back in Australia, and he rang him up and said, right, I'm selling the car, come and get it now. And I was like, right, okay, I'm driving overnight. And it was as simple as that. And away it went. And this is 5040, and it's all original paint. The paint on this car is as it was. The rear body is the straightest rear tub that we've ever come across. The chassis even has weird stenciling on it. It's got an F.
It's light green. It's still got all the light green.
Yeah, it's still got light green paint. Huge amount of light green paint, which, as Al said, it's very rare to find. The earlier vehicles with paint still on them. there's plenty of nice dark green examples, cruising around. But the light greens and indeed the light green and silver chassis cars are obviously even rarer, in their original state. But yeah, to be able to do this and get it back to the UK and then have a customer who's like, right, I want something really cool. It's got to be patinaed and it's got to be original. And I want it to be a light green car. And we're like, that's really difficult, but we just so happen to have secured one, in the last 6 months or something. And they're really difficult to find. And basically, here it is, take it or leave it.
And it's got the early Granville badge.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's the that badge was only fitted.
You can see that.
Yeah, but it was only fitted 949, early 50 dark green cars. Yeah, very short time, and I don't know what the reason that badge was, other than some marketing thing.
It must have been marketing,
but it didn't last.
Seems redundant with the other one on the grill, but it is a really cool one. We'll have to put up a close-up picture of those. I think I have one.
I'll get you one of. Excuse me. It's one of those things that it was obviously a souvenir hunters like thing that people just stole off the wings when these vehicles got parked up, because finding one is really rare, and it's cool that this one somehow, survived. I think it's purely because the amount of owners that this vehicle has is obviously very minimalistic, and it hasn't been through loads of changes of hands, which obviously help, maintain the vehicle's, originality. But yeah, it's been a cool thing to do an earlier car as a patina vehicle that's not our own vehicle as well, because obviously patina cars are really subjective to the customer, and we've had a real good time with things that Alex and I have looked at and gone, well, we wouldn't necessarily want to change that, or we would recommend that you change this or revert this back to its original state. And the customer might turn around and say, well, actually, I kind of like it the way it is, or you need to straighten out that wing a bit because it's got a great big dent in it. Well, that type of thing.
We do only try and leave as much.
Try and leave them as authentic as they are, but make them safe and serviceable. I think that's probably the critical.
I think that's a good point. I think anytime you've got a restoration, there's always going to be some subjectivity in how things were done. But if it's intentional, if there's a reason behind it, I think it makes a much better end result. If everything's well thought through and you've considered the parts you're using and the methods you're using, and I think that's really great that's what you guys are doing. So thank you again for explaining that and telling us all about your process and philosophy. That's really great. Now, are you ready for the lightning round?
It is the world over known as the most difficult set of Land Rover-based questions administered by one of the most difficult Land Rover people. So
that's true. So since we have two of you, we're going to have to alternate answers. And if you're not familiar, it's quick questions and very brief, gut responses. And these are slightly tailored to you in particular. But we'll start with Alex, and then we'll go to Rob. And then the last question, I need a response from both of you.
Cool.
You ready?
Ready.
All right. Alex, petrol or diesel?
Diesel.
Ooh. Interesting.
Controversial.
Not too many Series 1 diesels out there. Light green or bronze green, Rob?
Oh, light green. Every time.
Every time. All right. Alex, Siamese or spread bore?
I'd say Siamese.
Oh, that is the wrongest correct answer I've ever heard.
Wow.
It's so bad. And I know
this is the lightning round that's going to break up this team. Rob's going to it's like I don't even know you.
I don't even know you. Rob, narrow or wide transom?
Wide transom. It's got to be. Yeah, again, stick with the early stuff. That's where the cool shit happens. Yeah.
All right, Alex, ring pull or part-time four-wheel drive? Ring pull. All
See,
right.
I like it part-time because then you can do donuts and stuff. Especially in the snow.
All right. And final question, response from both of you. Best way to remove gear oil from your underpants?
I don't know. Brake cleaner?
Oh,
Brake clean. Bold. Spicy.
Old, spicy.
Brake
Yeah.
cleaner is the second thing inside the washing machine, maybe? Put it in with the,
What do you mean, like stain it?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah.
But then it stinks your washing machine out completely as well. So
This is you guys are debating this.
yeah. Sorry about that, by the way.
It's a perfect insight into their process right here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I reckon we'll go for that. Yeah. Bit
The
of
Actually,
dog
call
knows.
it or stain remover, the same amount.
But, you know, when I actually got people here, this is wrong.
Dog's like, I just eat them. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
There's a fundamental error. You know, it's you not.
Yeah.
But I know Ike is, so you'll
I'm the
understand.
cat person, so yeah.
Yeah, and how this business relationship works, I don't know on that basis alone, but it
Right.
does. So,
Well, I think we've definitely learned some things here about this relationship. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. You guys got all the answers correct. Very impressive.
Well done. Yeah, well done. Well done.
Really? Did we?
Oh, yeah.
Expert.
Everyone.
Flawless victory. Expertly executed. Yeah, well done. Well done. All right, boys. Well, hey, it has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you and hear the stories of how this whole operation, this whole scheme, if you will, came about. And we wish you tons of luck going forward. And I promise that give me maybe another year and I will paint my tub and panels and stuff from you and put it on my
Yeah, get it done. Get it done.
yeah, it's it's happily tucked away in its crate where it's been for a couple of years, but we'll get to it. I promise. It's on the list. So
That's very cool.
it's vintage now. Somebody's gonna find that and they're gonna be like, "This is a vintage CKD tub for
Oh
an
my God, I found a new on stock tub. Like, what are the odds?
No, it's just been sitting around forever. All right, boys. Well, hey, thanks again and all the best.
Thank you very much, James.
Thanks,
Cheers. See you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? I love those guys, the two of them. And they're like an old married couple, and just love them.
They're going to become Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets before long.
That's
You know?
right. Watching a Land Rover drive by and be like, those rivets are too much of a dome on those rivets.
Look at that valve stem. It's coming out the spoke instead of between the spokes.
I like
Any
it.
rate,
Right. Wow. Yeah.
super
Good times,
super
good
great
times,
to
super
hear
good.
some about the work that they're doing and some of the vehicles they're restoring.
And if you
uh,
haven't been to the CKD Shop website, it's just fun to look around in, quite frankly.
Yeah,
I mean,
great.
they have their web, store and things. The ability to look up parts on their website is really fantastic. And if you do have a vintage Land Rover, specifically a Series 1 Land Rover, there's just simply no better place. I mean, it is really cool. They do a really good job. That's ckd.co.uk. And you can order everything right through their website. Yeah, we're going to definitely do more with those guys. I love Alex and Rob. They're a fun bunch. So unfortunately, because of all the talk of flattened head rivets this week, we have run out of time for Ike's review of Nando's, but we will get that in a future episode.
next time.
If you haven't yet gone to our YouTube channel, why not head on over there now? Check that out. What are you doing? Are you driving? I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Put the Tesla into self-drive. Put your 80-inch into self-drive by sticking a broom handle or something through the steering wheel and dial up the old YouTube. Check out some content on there. And also, if you feel like getting yourself a tiny Ike sticker to affix to your car or maybe a t-shirt, something like that, head on over to underpoweredhour.com and check out the shop. We got all kinds of stuff in there. And hey, the holidays are coming up, buy early, buy often, buy Underpowered Hour. All right, Ike. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you again. And thanks to the CKD guys. And I'll see you next week.
All right. See you on the trail.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Barris, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Barris. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.